Happy day everyone. Today in this video we will start with a new chapter which is Anatomy of Flowering Plants from class 11 Biology. So talking about what is anatomy? Anatomy means internal structure. In the previous video we have dealt with morphology of flowering plants, where morphology refers to only the external structure. Here in the anatomy we will be talking about the internal structure. So let's get into the video. To start with tissue. So what is tissue? As you all know, tissues are formed of cells. So the cells which have common origin and function, that is COF I have mentioned, common origin and function will form together as a tissue. Based on their capability of whether they can divide or not, the cells of the plants are further divided into two types, which is meristematic and permanent tissue. So let's start with the meristematic. First of all, what is meant by meristem? Meristems are the specialized regions on the plant which can be actively divided. Okay, in Greek, meristem means divided. So that is the meaning where meristem refers to the division. So talking about the meristematic tissue, they are further classified into primary and secondary meristem. The primary meristem constitutes of apical and intercalary meristem, while the secondary meristem is also called as lateral meristem. To talk about the apical meristem, they occurs at the tips. They occurs at the tips of root and shoot. That is root apical meristem and shoot apical meristem, ram and stem. And to talk about further, they produce the primary tissue. As I said, the primary tissue consists of apical meristem. They produce the primary tissue and they occur at the tips. And talking about the intercalary meristem, they occur between the mature tissue. They occur between the mature tissue and they have the capability of regeneration. For example will be grass, where the parts removed by the grazing herbivores will be regenerated. Regeneration, as we have already talked in the animal kingdom, as in planaria. So that kind of regeneration, it will be shown by the intercalary meristem. And talking about the lateral meristem, which is of secondary meristem, they occurs in the mature region. In case of apical meristem, we saw they occurs in the tips of the roots and shoot, but in case of lateral, they will be occurring in the mature regions of root and shoot. And also to point out where exactly they will be, they occur in the woody axis. They occur in the woody axis and they are of cylindrical shape. And to give some examples, core cambium, intervascular cambium, these are the examples for the lateral meristem, and they produce the secondary tissue. The apical meristem will be producing primary tissue and the lateral meristem will be producing secondary tissue. Now talking about the permanent tissue. So the first case will be meristematic tissue and the second division will be permanent tissue. The permanent tissues are the cells which have structurally and functionally specialized by the primary and secondary meristematic tissue. By the divisions of primary and secondary meristematic tissue, the cells now will be attaining a specialized function. For each of them will be having a specialized function and also a specialized structure. I will do this. Like for example, what can we say? One will be for growth and another can be for absorbing the nutrition. So like that. Okay, they will be differentiated and specialized, and these tissue after specialization, they won't be able to divide. So the cells after the activity of primary and secondary meristematum, they will be attaining structurally and functionally specialized, and they will be losing the capability to divide. So all these cells are called as permanent or mature cells. These mature cells together will form a permanent tissue. This is how the permanent tissues are formed. The permanent tissues are further classified into simple, which means they have made up of same type of cells, and also complex, which means they are made up of different types of cells. During the primary growth, the primary plant body, the apical meristem will be producing few other tissues, which are dermal tissue, ground tissue and vascular tissue. Here the dermal tissue will be help in production, the vascular tissue will be helping as xylem and phloem, which help in absorption of nutrition. So let's talk about the division of permanent tissue, which is simple tissue. The first division will be simple tissue. So as I said, the simple tissues are made up of only one type of cells, and they are further divided into three types, which are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. So talking about the parenchyma form the major component within the organ. If you take any of the organ, parenchyma will be as a majority. Okay, and talking about their structure, they are isodiametric, which means iso means same and diameter, as you all know, they will be having the isodiametric, that means they have the same diameter all over the structure. And the shapes might be oval, spherical, round, polygonal, etc. And the walls are thin and they are made up of cellulose. And they might be closely packed without any gap between each cells of parenchyma, or else they might have small spaces which are called as intercellular spaces. They either make closely packed, and also sometimes they will be having intercellular spaces. And talking about their function, they perform photosynthesis, storage, and also secretion. So this is about complex simple tissue and parenchyma. And talking about the collenchyma, they in dicotyledonous plants, they occurs below the epidermis layer. In the dicotyledonous plants, collenchyma occurs below the epidermis layer. You know the layers like dermis, epidermis, and hypodermis. We have few layers. And talking about the structure, there may be homogeneous layer, which means they are of same even layers, or sometimes they occur in patches also. And here these cells have thickened the corners. The corners will be very thick. The reason behind that will be they have a high deposition of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectins at the corners of the cells. And the shape will be oval, spherical, and or of polygonal also. Sometimes they contain chloroplast. Often they contain chloroplast. It is not like mandatory. If they contain chloroplast, they will assimilate the food. They contain chloroplast, they will assimilate the food. As you know, the main purpose of chloroplast is to deal with the food. And talking about the spacer, here the intercellular spaces are absent. In simple tissue we saw it may or may not present. Here it is absent. And they produce mechanical support to growing plants such as young stem and petiole of leaf. So talking about the third one, which is of sclerenchyma, their function is to produce the mechanical support. The sclerenchyma are generally long, narrow, and they are also have thick wall and lignified cell walls. Okay. In case of parenchyma, we talked about thin walls, and in collenchyma is also having thick walls, and in case of sclerenchyma also it is of thick wall, but they are having lignified cell walls, not cellulose. Okay. And talking about, they also have numerous pits. They are long, narrow, thick, and lignified cell walls, and they have numerous pits. Okay. And these sclerenchymas are dead. As of now, both parenchyma and collenchyma are living tissue, but this sclerenchyma is a dead one, and they don't have protoplasm. Of course, they are dead. And based on the variation in structure, origin, and development, these sclerenchymas is further divided into two types, which is fibers and scleroids. So what is the fibers? The fibers are the thick-walled, elongated, and pointed ones. Okay. And they will be generally occurs in group. This is all about fibers. And talking about the scleroid, here the shape will be spherical, oval, and cylindrical. This is the first major difference between the fibers and scleroid. They are talking about the fibers, they are pointed, but in case of scleroids, they are spherical, oval, and cylindrical. They are also having thick and dead walls, and they also have a lumen. The lumen is nothing but a narrow cavity in the center. If you see the picture of scleroids, you can see the narrow cavity in the center, that is called as lumen, and they will occur in the fruit walls such as nuts and leaves of tree and pulp of guava, pear, and sapota, and also in the seed coats of legume. So in this video, we have talked about the introduction of anatomy of flowering plants, what is tissue, and how they are further divided, and we talked about the classification of meristematic tissue, which is primary and secondary, but the primary consists of apical and intercalary, and the secondary is also known as lateral one. And talking about the permanent tissue, we saw these are of two types, simple and complex. Within simple tissue, we saw three divisions: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. In further video, we will start talking about the complex tissue and so far. Thank you.